to appreciate that fine sunshine that we've been having over the last couple of weeks. So I hope you've got a half an hour and that you've got some common sense and sitting there snuggled up beside the heater, because we've got lots to tell you on the Monday edition of the Morning Show. Later on, I must, by the way, say thank you to all the people who've offered to fill in for me if I do have another coughing fit, and I don't really know what this week has to offer. We'll just wait and see. One of my guests is commiserating with me because he feels, well, a little bit that way. So we'll just see what happens on the Monday edition of the Morning Show. Later on, we catch up with Christine Tully with her regular beauty segment, and we're going to look at makeup for the older ladies and just a few tips here. And Christine's got a wonderful diagram and a finished article just for you to have a look at, and I think you're going to learn a lot from that segment. We also catch up with a number of people from Mooroopna who have produced a marvellous history of Mooroopna and district. It's going to be launched next Sunday. We'll give you a look at it. We're not going to give you a look at the finished actual sort of cover, because apparently that is quite magnificent. You'll have to go along on Sunday to see that, but that's all right. A lot more about that a little bit later on. We turn our attention firstly to the Association for the Blind, and my first guest this morning is Terry Fraser, who's the Regional Manager for the Association for the Blind here in the Golden Valley. Terry, welcome back.
Great to be back, Jan.
I hear that you're not feeling too terrific.
Oh, well, if I cough, well, you can sneeze, but we'll get by.
What if we both cough together?
Oh, I don't think the viewers would appreciate that very much.
I think the worry with this sort of thing that's going around is that you really sort of have to shake it, and it seems to hold on for a while, so I do commiserate with you, and I hope you feel better really, really soon.
Yes. No staying up late and watching the Test cricket, Jan. We should get an early night somehow.
But this is the trouble with all the tennis and all the things that happen, the car racing. You sort of got no chance, really,
it's
have
terrible.
You? I know, but it's good television, what can I say? Let's talk about something a lot of people like to do, and I'm fascinated to ask you, I got this in the mail from the Association for the Blind. It's a garden program for everyone, including blind, visually impaired and disabled people. What prompted the Association for the Blind to write a book like this?
Jan, gardening programs have always been a part of our day centre activities right around the state. And at our Mount Eliza Centre in particular, we have a very active gardening group of people who are blind, visually impaired, and also have other disabilities as well. And so we thought we'd put all of our experience down in a book so that other groups operating day centres and activities for disabled people could perhaps gain from our experience. There's a number of things that you can do, like raised garden beds, for instance, for people in wheelchairs is very, very handy. And for blind people, of course, gardening is very tactile through the sense of feel, and also you can have fragrant plants too, which people with a visual impairment can appreciate. People
watching this morning might be a little bit surprised. I mean, visually impaired people doing gardening, but I mean, this is the whole thing. This is the tack that the Association for the Blind take. I mean, to try and make life as normal as we possibly can.
Well, that's right, and I guess it's in response to the fact that visually impaired people are just that. They're just people. They're normal people who have a visual handicap, and very often that's because they've lost their vision in later life. So they have a whole lifetime of experience, and often that includes gardening. It won't for me, because I'm quite happy to see my wife doing the gardening. And I know she's not watching at the moment, she's at the doctor's. So it's important for people to do the things that they used to do before they lost their vision. And that's a part of our program.
Well, included in this book, I had a quick leaf through it. I mean, it suggests things like hydroponics, growing plants in water, as a very easy way to have your own garden in a small area, but also a no-dig garden. I thought, gee, that a lot of people would like that idea.
Yes, that's my garden. My garden's a no-dig garden. What about yours, Jan?
Well, yes, it's sort of at the moment. I've got lots of seedlings and things, and they're sitting up and taking care of themselves, so I'm quite pleased about that.
Right.
And you need that sort of thing at this time of the year. I wondered, I suppose gardening for people with any sort of disability really gives them a boost. I mean, just anybody, you get such satisfaction out of it. You
do, and you have the satisfaction of achieving something. And really with any activity for disabled people, whether it's gardening or whatever it is, the fact that you're with other people, it's really about relationships, and you can talk about how your plants are going, how your seedlings are going, and you get a real boost from interacting with other people. And self-esteem is really important with any activity that you plan for visually impaired people. Right,
well, I guess not today, but we'll at least talk about it and give people some ideas. That's a garden program for everyone, and it's available at the Association for the Blind. Terry, probably a good way to link it to another question that I want to ask you is, obviously at the new centre, you're going to need a garden, aren't you?
Yes, we're planning to have indoor gardening and outdoor gardening, Jan. Indoor gardening for days like today. I can hear the wind blowing outside and the rain coming down. So there's a lot that can be done indoors, and even for nursing home patients, they can still pot plants actually from a bed. And if the people who are running the program have enough enthusiasm and skill for gardening, it can be done under all sorts of situations. So we're looking at hydroponics, and we'll have a glass house in the new Baringa Centre as well.
All talking about the new Baringa Centre in Archer Street, I've been keeping my eye on the local paper, and there's been lots of bits and pieces about it. How's it going?
It's going wonderfully well. The first stage, Jan, includes 24 independent living units and a community centre, and that will be up and running and open in November this year. And then the second stage gets underway early next year.
And let's talk about the units and the garden. I gather that colours and contrasts are important too.
Yes, colours in our development have been used in a special way, because people with a visual handicap need high contrast. That's to say that perhaps my coat and my shirt contrast with one another, so if you had cataracts you could see the difference. But this rather lovely couch that we're sitting on has very low contrasting colours, so that people wouldn't be able to pick up the pattern in that. So around window frames and doors and kitchen benches, we've used high contrasting colours to help orientate people.
It sounds wonderful. And one thing I really didn't want to leave without asking you is the fact that I'm utterly amazed, because I believe that you've received great reaction to the fact that you've been fundraising for the new centre. How's that going?
Well, it's almost over, Jan, which I'm delighted to say, and to the people of Shepparton who have supported us, we'd like to say thank you very much. But many viewers of the morning show have supported us, and we're within just about $5,000 of our target of $950,000. So we've gone for almost $1 million, and we're just about there. And the donations that we've heard that are coming, I'm sure, will go right over the top, which we'll need to do. So,
and it hasn't taken all that long to achieve such a mammoth amount.
About 16 weeks, and many people said, look, running after the hospital appeal for the children's ward, which was so successful, you just won't get there. And we thought, well, we've got a good cause, and that the people of Shepparton are extremely generous, of course, in the business of Shepparton, so we've got there, thanks to the people.
Terry, something on a little bit of a serious note. Whenever we've done segments here on the morning show, particularly on practical help for people with visual impairment, I've always been amazed at the reaction that we've got, and it really is important for people out there to know that there's a place that they can contact for any, even if it perhaps isn't, well, they think it's an insignificant little thing, but it's making life difficult. There's a place you can ring, you can call to get some help, can't you?
Yes, that's right. It's particularly important for people of Shepparton to have their own facility, and the Goulburn Valley, by the way, not just Shepparton. And the Association for the Blind is happy to hear from anybody who requires assistance. They don't have to be totally blind. If they've just got a vision problem to any extent, we are happy to call on them regardless of where they are in the viewing area.
And you can be contacted, I guess, 215 is that the right number?
You're right on, Jan.
You see, I do call it every now and again, so if you do want to contact the Association for the Blind here in Shepparton, the phone number is 058 215 479, 215 479. My guest at the moment is Regional Manager for the Association for the Blind, Terry Fraser, who's a regular guest here on the morning show. Terry, delighted to have you back on the program. Thanks for your time here today. I do, as I said earlier on, hope that you're feeling a little bit better. You're looking pretty fit for someone who's not feeling too well.
Thanks, Jan, and perhaps when the new Baringa Centre's built, we might do a morning show down in the new centre.
Well, I didn't know you were going to throw that at me. We'll just have to negotiate that.
Sounds like a good idea.
It does. Thank you very much, Terry. We'll take a quick break. I'll be back in just a moment with lots more on the Monday edition of The Morning Show.
The Bangles' new album is crammed full of just about everything. Check it out. I love it in you.
Welcome back. You're watching the Monday edition of The Morning Show. Later on we catch up with Christine Tully with our regular segment, and today we look at makeup for the older lady. But right now we turn our attention to, I guess, an historical note. Months and months ago, Gwenda Collins contacted me and said, look, Jan, can you set aside a segment late July, because we've got a history book of Mooroopna and District and we want to come on and talk about it and let everybody know about the launch. Now, on Friday I received a copy of that book. No slight against Mooroopna, but I expected it to be a lot smaller, and I'm absolutely shocked because they certainly don't do things by halves over there in Mooroopna. So good morning to all our viewers over in that area. My guests this morning are Gwenda Collins, Ray Starrett, who happens to be the president of the local Historical Society, and Norma Starrett, who are along to tell us all about this wonderful project. To all of you, welcome to the program. Gwenda, if I start with you, you really weren't kidding when you said you had a marvellous project off the ground. How did the project come about?
It slowly evolved from an idea to continue on from the McLennan history that was written in 1936. We were just going to continue on. But once we became involved we started from the beginning and used the McLennan history as a guide.
Now, what sort of sources did you turn to put together such a comprehensive book?
Local clubs, local people that had lived in the area for quite a few generations, people who knew backgrounds, and then we asked them to write down their thoughts, what they knew, and then we as a group collated it.
Right, and I know that a lot of midnight oil has been burnt
Very
putting this
much.
together. Delighted that it's all worked out.
Yes.
Ray, thank you for coming along this morning. Now, the Starrett name is a name that's well known in the Maroopna area, and I'm pleased to say that you're president of the Maroopna Historical Society. You're an active society to produce such a comprehensive volume, aren't you?
Certainly are. The support that we've got from people of all walks of life in producing or supplying material has been really tremendous.
And so I gather that you've really drawn on people's reminiscences, that's a hard word to say, I can't say it, talking about the past and photos and all those sorts of things. You've really had to draw on a lot of that sort of material?
Yes, yes, that's true, and it's amazing what material has come forward. I think that the disappointment with the book committee, if I may say so, is that they can't include it all. It has to be condensed, and from that reason, we're sorry about some of the ones that are left out, but still it's...
Well, the major sorts of influences on the history of Maroopna have been included, so I guess that's the main thing. Norma, if I could come along to you, the idea of sort of sitting with people, a lot of people in the Maroopna area have been able to give you ideas. Did you sort of sit around and maybe tape conversations and sort of draw on those sorts of things?
Actually, Reverend Ivan Blake did the taping. He went around quite a few people and taped different ones. Sometimes there'd be two of us together and picked up bits like that. And then we've used the tapes at meetings and things like that, and just gradually worked out what we wanted from those things.
Because it's really important those sorts of things really convey, I guess, the essence of life in Maroopna and what the spirit of the place is all about too, doesn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And it's very sad to lose that sort of thing. So this is where this book does come in handy, doesn't it?
That's right.
Well, we're delighted that you've been able to do that. Perhaps if we take a look, Gwenda, I know that you're very excited about the fact that there are some terrific photos in the book, and we've put together some this morning just to show people all about it and give them an idea of the range of sorts of things. Now, this is the cover, but it's not the true cover because we actually haven't got the dust cover, and I gather that that's rather exciting. What's that going to include?
The dust cover is cream in colour, and it has been designed by Ross Dainton. And it depicts sporting, fruit growing, and the historic buildings. It's sort of an overall view of Maroopna.
As I mentioned, people have to go along on Sunday and just take a look at that dust cover. We wanted to hold back a little bit of a surprise for Sunday. Let's take a look inside the book, and there are a number of interesting photos, including this one. It's hand-painted.
Yes, this was taken back from 1916 in early photography, and in those days they hand-painted these pictures, and we're very happy to have been given a loan of 2 or 3 of these actual pictures to be able to use in the book.
Absolutely magnificent. We'll move along and take a look at a few more because we wanted to give people... Ray, this is a fairly significant photo for you. Tell us about it.
Yes, I remember that being taken when I was a boy. That's the old steam engine that we cut in chaff, and of course my family have been out there for 105 years now since they...
Just taking a look at a photo like that, things have changed somewhat, haven't
Oh my
they?
word.
Probably just as well, I'd say, although they seem to get along pretty well in those days. We'll move along and take a look at some other photos, some significant sorts of buildings. And Norma, perhaps I can ask you, because I know we were pointing out these particular photos, buildings in the Maroopna area that played a little bit of an influence. One of them, I guess?
That's the hotel, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is.
Yeah.
A number of hotels in the Maroopna area.
There were a terrific lot along the main street in the olden days, far more than there is now.
And I guess that the idea that we can sort of convey this across to people really shows the colour of the Maroopna area and its history. And I guess that's more a modern building, isn't it?
Well, that was the old one and that's the new one.
Great. Another couple of photos that will show people. Gwenda, if I come back to you, I guess most places could say that the post office is one building that really does play an influence in life, and we're looking at the building now. Tell us a bit about that.
I think that's the original post office. down near the, as you're entering Maroubna on the left-hand side when you're coming in, that's still there.
And that's an aerial view, of course.
Yes, yes.
And we've got another shot that shows it, I guess, a little bit more in detail.
And this is today's post office.
I guess we really need to tell people that on Sunday this launch is going to take place. Now, perhaps, Ray, if I come along to you, just some of the things that are going to take place, because you want people to come along and obviously have a look at the book, but you've got a number of significant people who are going to do a number of things. Tell us about what will take place.
Yes, well, Councillor Ryan, the Rodney Shire President, he will be acting as MC, and it's planned to have more or less get people to come along as a back to a certain degree too, and we'll be having Maroubna High School choir and band prior to the official launch, and the program is that Councillor Ryan will introduce. Will welcome people and then introduce me, and then I'll introduce Sir Ian McLennan.
Now, Sir Ian McLennan's a pretty significant person. He's been a very generous benefactor for the Maroubna community, and someone who's played a significant role in the history of Maroubna. So it's pretty important to have him along on Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, yes. The McLennan family, of course, have been well known in Maroubna for many, many years, and have been a wonderful backstop to so many families in the area. And of course, Sir Ian McLennan he's reached the pinnacle in commercial life, and he's one of our we're very proud for him to be the son of Maroubna.
We're delighted that he could be along on Sunday. Gwenda, if I come back to you, just a little bit about the content of the book for people watching this morning when they go along on Sunday, or indeed avail themselves of a copy. Just what sort of content is it, from sort of go to woe, really, isn't it?
Yes, from the beginning of settlement right through to the present day. It covers the whole range of society in the socio-economic and political growth that Maroubna's gone through.
And I noticed that you really have concentrated too on families that have played a significant part, but also groups, because that's important. They've had an influence.
Yes, it's all our early families, it's the growth of the clubs, the growth of the schools.
And you'll be amazed to see just at some of the photos who you'll spot in this book, because we were having a look at it earlier on just before the program, and Norma just happened to sort of open at a page and said, "Oh, there's my dad." And what a lovely thing to have as a memento. So we're delighted to have, as my guest this morning, telling us about the launch of the history of Maroubna and District, a project that's been undertaken by the very active Maroubna Historical Society. My guests at the moment are Gwenda Collins, Ray Starrett, who's the president of the group, and Norma Starrett. Delighted to have you on the program this morning. Thanks for your time. Congratulations on the book. And I gather too, Gwenda, the fact that my reaction to the book is fairly commonplace. You've had a few people say, "Goodness gracious."
Yes, we have, yes. Different ones that have had to look at it for media publicity have all been very pleasantly surprised at the quality of it.
It's wonderful value too.
Yes.
Well, look, I think we couldn't agree more. So to all of you, thank you for your time, and all the best on Sunday. We hope that it goes very, very well, and indeed a lot of people avail themselves of the history of Maroubna and District. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jan.
We'll take a quick break. I'll be back in just a moment. Do stay with us on The Morning Show. Welcome back to the program. Well, the rest of my guests at the moment are hovering all around the history of Maroubna and checking out just to see who they know in that book. So it augurs well for the launch of the history of Maroubna on Sunday. We know that it's going to go well. Let's turn our attention now to makeup and to skincare. And my guest right now to present our regular segment here on The Morning Show is Chris Tully. Christine, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Jan.
Nice to have you back. Something that we're looking at this morning is makeup for the older lady. And I noticed, I was leafing through magazines since we've had a chat about the fact that we were going to comment on this, and they really are overlooked a lot, aren't they?
Yes, that's true, Jan, actually, and I think with this generation, women are tending to sort of You know, we're going more into our careers, perhaps getting back into the workforce when the children have grown up. So there is a lot more emphasis needed to be placed on women in this age group that are perhaps getting back into that.
Well, I thought it was a good opportunity for you and I to discuss some great tips, and we've got a diagram this morning. Perhaps if we take a look at that diagram and we can give some really terrific tips about just what an older lady has to look at in makeup that can really give a nice subtle effect, because I think that's the key thing, isn't it?
It is, Jan. Really with the makeup, the more subtle it is, the better. From this diagram, you can look perhaps at things like the eyebrows. It's perhaps a good idea to go for soft brown pencils rather than the harsh pencils. Also with mascara, it's a good idea to perhaps try the softer blacks or the browns in preference to perhaps a harsh colour. You'll see with the photograph that we'll be showing after this diagram, the eye makeup is very natural, very soft muted colours, and also brought down into the cheek line as well as the lips.
I just wondered the choice of eye makeup, particularly colours and all those sorts of things, they really need to be kept very subtle, don't they?
Yes, they do, Jan. This is the photograph here that we can see with the eye makeup. It is very soft. There's not a lot of dark contouring, dark pencils, which is a lot more flattering to women of this age group.
And I just wondered too, we need to talk about foundation and powder, and this seems to be an area that people have a few problems. Just some tips on that, the choice of and the use of too.
Yes, with the foundations, it's probably a good idea to go for a very sheer, soft foundation, one that doesn't have any sheen, a fairly matte look, which is the same with the eyeshadow, and apply it just very lightly, and also a very fine translucent powder, sort of getting back to the really natural, sort of well-groomed look for women that age.
What about some the tips on lipstick now? I know a couple of ladies I just talked to over the weekend say they have problems with lipstick running. Now, what's your advice there?
Right, it's a good idea, Jan, with your lipstick when applying it to perhaps take a little longer and perhaps blot the lip area with powder first, and then do your actual lip line. It is a little bit tricky to start off with, as I'm sure a lot of women will be able to know themselves, but it really is worth persisting, because if you can get that lip line on and then apply lipstick with a brush, it does last a lot longer, and it always gives a really professional look to the lip area.
And I guess too that we need to not only pay attention to our faces, but there are other areas, and I gather that the hands and the neck are problem areas that older women do worry about. Some advice there too?
Yes, I think it's probably a good time, Jan, to start and pay a little bit more attention to those areas, particularly the neck. I know a lot of women, we always tend to be very concerned about the face and sort of work our creams in, but it's a good idea to also include the neck with our cleansing and our treatment creams, and also sunscreen actually, and also the back of the neck's worth keeping in mind. Particularly with the shorter haircuts these days. It's an area we tend to overlook a little bit. And also the back of the hands is something else that's really important. Actually, a good trick, Jan, I find whenever I'm cleansing my skin or applying cream, what bit that you've got left on the back of the fingers, instead of wiping it off on a towel, wipe it on the back of your hands. And you'll find that you'll automatically do that, and you're sort of cleansing that area and treating it and putting your sunscreen on as well.
I'm always trying to find out what people think about the things that we do discuss here on the morning show, particularly with your segment. And one thing we haven't touched on, people with glasses. Now, they wear makeup. Just a few tips there to, I guess, highlight their eyes properly, even though they do wear glasses.
Yes, actually it's interesting, Jan. I think that the most important thing to do is just stand back in a mirror and actually have a good look and just see what the eye does look like underneath the glasses. And from there it's a good idea to perhaps put a little bit more emphasis on the outer edge of the eye and also underneath the eye, you know, to sort of bring the colour out through the actual glasses. It's also very important to just watch tinting if you do happen to wear tinted glasses, because quite often they can alter the look of the eyeshadow. So you generally find perhaps a colour and a technique that suits you best, and it's probably a good idea to stick with that.
And it's important to realise too that because you wear glasses, it's not good to ignore makeup.
No, actually probably the other way around, Jan. It's a good time to place a little bit more emphasis on the eye area.
Chris, lovely to have you on the program. Thanks for being back here. We'll catch up with you in another couple of weeks. It's time to go. Lovely to have your company. Do hope you can join me once again tomorrow at 10:30. Until then, I must mention too the fact that we are going to cover a number of things on the show, including some great charity raising and also another regular sponsored segment. Do hope you can join me then. Until then, this is Jan Dean saying bye for now.